My name is Jason Edmonds, and today I'm going to be presenting my capstone project on type 1 diabetes. This is a little about me. My name is Jason. I'm 17 years old. I was admitted to Children's Medical Center in Hartford, Connecticut on April of 2025, which I came to find out that I had type 1 diabetes. So, at first I didn't know anything about it. I was only fed the information that my doctors can give me at the time. So I wanted to make this capstone project about type 1 diabetes so I could share these different facts to people that might not know a lot about it or are just being diagnosed with it and want to know a little more right now. I want to also clear up common misconceptions that come with type 1 diabetes because there's a lot of them out there, especially like, oh, type 1 diabetes is caused by eating too much food. That's not why it's caused. It's actually an autoimmune disease, which means your body is just attacking itself for no reason, which I will go on further in my presentation. I'd also like to explain what a day in the life of someone living with type 1 diabetes is, since not people know about it. So that's a little about me. How I knew I had diabetes. So I was showing symptoms. I was really thirsty. I was drinking really like a lot of everything at the time. I was drinking, I think, like every 30 minutes or every 10 minutes even. I was drinking a lot, using the bathroom excessively. How I said I was drinking a lot, I was also using the bathroom a lot because I was drinking and then it was coming out. I was having intense mood changes. I was feeling really like angry, sad. I was just off the chart of what I normally am like. I was eating more than usual. And also, I told my mom about how I was showing these symptoms, and she wanted to get me tested at the doctor's office. So that's how I found out I had diabetes at the time. My research question that I'm trying to answer is, how does type 1 diabetes affect someone on a daily basis? Background info. What is diabetes? There are two types. So, not a lot of people know this actually, but there's actually two types of diabetes, and while both are similar, both have their differences and often get confused with each other. Kind of connecting to those misconceptions that I was talking about in my previous slide. So, I'll start by describing both types, what they have in common. So, there's no cure to the disease, but there's treatment for both types. Both of them can happen at any age, some more common than others. Requires management of blood sugar levels, and if not treated can lead to long-term or life-threatening complications. So now let's talk about type 1. Type 1 is where your pancreas doesn't make insulin at all. It is not preventable, which means it is an autoimmune disease. Your body is attacking itself. There's no known cause to it, but genes play a big factor. You need injectable insulin for life, so every time before eating a meal you need insulin. At any age you can get it, but it's usually diagnosed before adulthood. Like, as I was saying, I'm 17, so I'm not an adult yet, but I'm really close. But this is the most common age that people get type 1 diabetes at, my age. Now let's talk about type 2 diabetes. This is where your body becomes insulin resistant. So, your body is making little to no insulin at all. It's caused by lifestyle or genes, so this is more like what happens in your life, what food you eat, your diet, and everything like that. You need injectable insulin or medication, depending on the current status of your diabetes and how you're treating it. It's most commonly diagnosed after age 45, so if you're young, there's a high chance you won't get it, but it still can be possible. It can be reversed and preventable. You can go into remission, but there is no cure for the disease. What is type 1 diabetes? So, specifically, type 1 diabetes is when your immune system mistakenly destroys beta cells in the pancreas, which stops it from producing insulin, which is needed to live. As you can see in the diagram, you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So, if the pancreas cannot make insulin, more glucose is in the bloodstream, leading to high blood sugars, which over time can be life-threatening. So, yeah. The diagram is the pancreas producing insulin, glucose, which insulin moves glucose to cells. But when you're diabetic, the problem is the immune cells destroy your beta cells and pancreas cannot produce insulin, which means glucose builds up in the blood, causing ketones, which I will further explain in my next slides. The common symptoms of diabetes are frequent urination, increased thirst, hunger, weakness, weight loss, blurred vision, and nausea. Slow healing, cuts or bruises, tingling feeling in your feet or hands. And here's a little photo I added that's kind of all the symptoms that you can have with diabetes. They happen usually when you're undiagnosed and going to DKA, which I'm going to talk about as well. I know I'm talking about this crazy vocabulary, but don't worry, I'm going to cover all of that. High versus low blood sugar. So high blood sugar is known as hypoglycemia, and this is when your blood sugar is over 250 milligrams. It's caused by not taking enough insulin, stress, sickness, eating more, or lack of exercise. Symptoms: increased thirst, frequent urination, fatigue, blurred vision, headaches, feeling weak. And to treat it, you would take a correction dose of insulin. Exercise can also make it go down as well. Diabetes is so unpredictable, and some things don't make sense while others do, like about exercise making it go down. I don't know why that happens. I'm not a doctor, but I'm just telling you from what I know. Low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. It's kind of confusing sometimes because I say hyperglycemia and I say hypoglycemia. The word is so similar that it's a little hard to keep track of. So this is when your blood sugar is less than 70 milligrams. The cause is taking too much insulin, eating less food, or skipping meals, or too much exercise. Symptoms include shakiness, sweating, dizziness, hunger, and confusion. To treat this, you would eat a snack without taking insulin, which is about like 5 to 15 carbs. I would say 15 carbs. Then you would wait 5 to 10 minutes and check your blood sugar. So high blood sugar over time can not be good, but that's only if it's consistently high. On the other hand, with low blood sugar, you need to treat it immediately. Or if it goes too low, you could possibly go into a coma, or it just wouldn't be good. So both are not good, but low blood sugars are more critical than highs. The normal range you should be in is 70 to 180 milligrams. Now let's talk about insulin and meals. So what can type 1 diabetics eat? You can eat anything. You just need to know the amount of carbs in the food you're eating to determine how much insulin you need to give yourself. So you can technically eat anything. There's nothing that type 1 diabetics can't eat. It's just they need to know the carbs that's in the food so they know how much insulin to give, as I just said. I know I'm repeating myself. I just want to make sure you guys know that, because this is one of the big misconceptions with type 1 diabetes, and it's important to understand that. The only exception is sugary drinks, which you still can have sugary drinks, but they really spike blood sugars, and it really doesn't make you feel good, because when your blood sugar's high, as I was saying, high blood sugars do not make you feel good. Take it from me, as a type 1 diabetic. So I like to stick with stuff. Personally, I like to drink Gatorade Zero, like Coke Zero, Pepsi Zero, anything zero, or like diet stuff. This is another fact. Sugar is not the only cause of high blood sugars with diabetes. Sugar actually contains carbohydrates, and that is what is really the main cause. So in sugar, there's carbs. It's not just the sugar alone, it's actually the carbs in the sugar. Insulin doses. So people with type 1 diabetes need to take injectable insulin before eating anything. That's right, you heard me, anything. But with carbohydrates though, which can be given by insulin pen or insulin pump. So I'm talking about like snacks, meals, little things, everything that has carbs. Most food contains carbs except like meat, chicken, or beef, like meat foods, which don't need insulin if you're eating it by itself. This is because meat does not have carbs in it. And here's a fun fact I like to add in my little slide here. People with diabetes make around 180 more decisions a day than people without it. Thinking about that, people with diabetes really gotta think before eating something or taking insulin or doing anything. There's so many things that people with type 1 diabetes have to think about. And, it can really be stressful at times. It can really get to your head. But when that happens, I like to take a step back and I like to calm myself by breathing or anything that makes me feel good about my decisions. So I try to stay calm about it. I have definitely got more used to it over time. Definitely making decisions like this, but yeah. How's an insulin dose determined? So insulin dose is determined by the number of carbohydrates in the meal. You add all the carbs up in the food you're eating, and that's the first step of figuring out insulin doses. So for example, if you ate like bread and like, I don't know, side of chips or something, you would add both of those. If in the bread you had like a hot dog, say you had a hot dog and chips, you wouldn't add the carbs of the hot dog because there's no carbs in the meat. But there is carbs in the bread and the chips. There's a lot of carbs in bread actually, if you didn't know. Carb ratio. The number of carbohydrates in the food you're eating is divided by a number that is different for everyone. So my carb ratio is 6, which means I would divide the carbs of the food I'm eating by 6. Then after that, I would take a correction dose. So if your blood sugar is higher than usual, you would take a correction dose. Here is a chart on the right I added. This is an example of a correction dose factor. It is not the same for everyone, but this is just an example. So if this is not my correction dose, this is just one I found on Google, but say my blood sugar was like, I don't know, 203. So I would add 2 units of insulin with how many units I had already for the carbs. So it's kind of confusing, but how do I describe this? So remember how I said that you had to divide the carbohydrates? So after you divide them by 6, say it'll be like 6.6. Then you're going to add the correction dose of 2 because your blood sugar is like 203. So then it would be like 7. Now, here's a note. Insulin pumps do all the math for you. I have an insulin pump now. I started with the pen. So it's a little different. And insulin pumps actually give you... Hold on. Let me go back on that. So, insulin pens have 0.0 and 0.5 factors. Like, you can switch it up and down. While an insulin pump actually can go in between those numbers and can be more precise in giving you insulin. So I know it's kind of confusing, but if you really want to know more about this, I'm probably not good at explaining it as much as I'm trying to, but you can learn more about it online from I would say Mayo Clinic or T1D Breakthrough. Yeah. DKA. So DKA is diabetic ketoacidosis. I know that's a big word. It's a serious life-threatening emergency that people with diabetes can get from the body's lack of insulin. So it happens when insulin doses are missed before meals or being undiagnosed with diabetes. The lack of insulin causes too much glucose to build up in the bloodstream, causing ketones. Ketones break down the fat in your body, making you lose weight, and it makes your blood dangerously acidic. So, before I was diagnosed with diabetes, my doctor, when I was in the hospital, they said I wasn't in DKA, but I was definitely on the road to DKA. And I knew this because I was showing the symptoms, like extreme thirst, frequent urination, nausea, vomiting, high blood sugar levels, fruity smelling breath. That's kind of weird. I didn't know that until my doctor told me, but I definitely was not having fruity smelling breath confusion, and difficulty breathing. What's scary is that DKA can happen fast as well. It can only take as little as 2 hours for someone to be in DKA. So, like, if you forget an insulin dose or something goes wrong, then that can be life-threatening, which is not good. So diabetes is really a big deal when it comes to DKA, especially like diabetes educators. When they hear DKA, they're gonna act fast, or like doctors in general, I should say, because that's really serious. They need to get you fluids in your body. They gotta get out those ketones, make sure you're healthy. So how are carbohydrates determined? So nutrition information can be found on most food products, which is very important to consider with type 1 diabetes, as it can tell you how many carbs are in the food you're eating, which is also to determine how much insulin to give. So if you look at this diagram right here, this photo that I took, it includes the serving size and the amount of carbohydrates. So the amount of carbohydrates is 20 for the serving size of one roll. So one roll is 20 carbs. If you had 2 rolls, you would add it 2 times, meaning 40 carbs. And you get the whole gist. So carbohydrates on nutrition labels are very important, especially taking into consideration that you have diabetes. Nutrition info is really helpful. And when it's not there, it can be really difficult. So I'm not going to show you the video in the presentation, but I've linked it on my description of this video, and it's also on my YouTube channel. If you want to watch, this video shows the process of people with type 1 diabetes figuring out how many carbs is in the meal they're eating using a scale. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the below. Next, let's talk about using restaurant information. So a lot of big restaurant companies have nutrition info that has carbs listed on either the website or mobile app. So, some even let you build your own meal with a nutrition calculator that adds all the carbs and the different toppings you're eating in the meal. So, like on McDonald's, if you scroll down, like if you press Big Mac, for example, you scroll down to nutrition info. You press on it, and it'll tell you everything that's inside of it. And as you can see, it says 45 total carbs. So, like if you had fries or something, then you would add the 45 and you would add the number of carbs in the fries too. And then you're done figuring out carbs for that. While looking at this Red Robin one on the right, you can actually pick the bun, the cheese, like the toppings and everything, and it will add those carbs up for you, which is actually really helpful as well. And I wish more places did this, like Red Robin, to be honest, and McDonald's. But, like, big restaurants like these usually have them, while on the other hand, small restaurants, like, say I was going to Parkville Market, which is like a food hall in my hometown. It's like they have small little restaurants that don't have nutrition info or anything like that. So you have to guess, kind of. You can use other restaurants, but it might be a little different, but you can depend on something to make you feel better about it. So yeah, it can be hard to determine carbs. I'm not going to lie to you. It can be hard, definitely. Nutrition info cannot always be found for the food we're eating, which can be difficult since too little insulin causes high blood sugars and too much causes low, which is stressful, but manageable. I would say, definitely. Manageable. Especially as you get into it more. Like, the more practice you have, the more better you'll be at it. Next, let's talk about medical devices. The traditional insulin pen, every diabetic's best friend when they start off with type 1 diabetes. There's 2 types of insulin pens that people with type 1 diabetes need to use. Fast-acting, which is taken multiple times a day when eating food to keep blood sugar levels stable after meals. So you take it before eating, and then it works up to 3 hours after, I would say. Next is long-acting. It's taken once a day every 24 hours, which keeps blood sugar levels stable throughout the day. So this is kind of like a safety net, so your blood sugars don't go too high and you go into DKA. How to use. So you would clean the top of the pen with an alcohol wipe, twist the needle on the tip of the pen, turn the number to 2, Then you would push the bottom to make sure the insulin is coming out, so you know it's coming into your body when you actually inject yourself with it. You turn the number to how much units of insulin you're going to give, then pinch your skin and push down until the number goes back to 0. I might not be explaining it again as well. If you'd like to see someone doing this, you can definitely search up diabetics using an insulin pen. There's definitely a lot of better videos that can explain it better than I can. Using an insulin pump. So when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I used a pen and needles to give myself insulin, as I was saying in the past slide. Now I use an insulin pump called Omnipod 5, and there's a little picture I added at the top right. So you can use this pump for like 3 days and then change it. Now let me go over some vocabulary for you. Basal rate. This is insulin being delivered throughout the day to keep blood sugar levels stable. So it's kind of like, as I was talking about in the previous slide, the long-acting insulin. This is the replacement for it. A bolus is a dose of insulin taken before meals to lower blood sugar after eating. So kind of like the fast-acting insulin you would use with the pen. If you are wearing a sensor, it will communicate to that pump you're wearing, whatever it is. I'm talking about Omnipod though, I'm not sure about the other pumps. It can communicate that to adjust your insulin dose based on your blood sugar. So this is like the correction dose I was talking about. You don't need to look at the graph or anything. You can just kind of calculate it already with the pump. The pump just calculates it for you, depending on if your sugar is high or low. It also tracks your insulin on board, which is another vocabulary word, which is how much insulin is still working in your body to determine how much to give you in a smarter way. So like if you just ate and you did, say you bolus 7 units of insulin. So then your IOB, insulin on board, would be 7. And it would go down over the period of 3 hours, because that's how long insulin works in your body. So after 3 hours, it'll go back to 0. And say if you had insulin on board 7, you had 7 units already on board, and you want to eat something else that was 3 units, then it would go up to 10 units of insulin on board. So that's cool. To use it, just enter the carbs of the food you're eating, press the use sensor, and it's all calculated for you. No more doing the math. And that's what I love about an insulin pump. It's really like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, it's a lifesaver compared to pens and needles, because like doing that every time you eat, just poking yourself, it's not fun. I'm not gonna lie. It's just, it hurts, and you gotta keep changing the spots you do it. It can be embarrassing too at times. I'm not gonna lie. Like in public, injecting yourself, it's kind of embarrassing. You know, I'm not gonna lie either. I used to go to the bathroom to do my insulin injections, but I just didn't care anymore. I've come to realize that my health is more important than what people think of me. And that is what I like to think of when I'm doing my insulin. Now, of course, I have the pump and don't have to worry about that, but that's what I would think about when I had pens. Now let's talk about using a sensor. So I use the Dexcom G7 glucose sensor to measure my blood sugar. I can wear it up for 10 days before changing it. There's a new Dexcom G7 that's actually coming out to further get that 10 days to 15 days, but it's only 18 and up, and at this time I'm 17, so I can't have it yet, which is a pain, because it's only 1 year difference, which is crazy. So, yeah. It tracks my glucose throughout the day, alerts me when it's too high, too low, take action. And I added a little diagram so you can further see. The red is my current reading, so that is my glucose right now, 110. That's a good thing, because you want it to be 70 to 180, as you can see in the chart. The trend arrow is steady, which is the sensor can predict if your levels are rising or falling. As you can see at the bottom right, this is what it would look like if it was steady, slowly rising or falling, so on, etc., etc. And then you have the graph in the blue. So you can see it from the past 3 hours, 6, 12, or 24. This is the past 3 hours, so it's really steady, it's very calm, very good. And when you eat, it'll go up, and then it should come back down from the insulin. But now let's talk about the lows and highs on the left. So if your number is red or yellow, that's not good. If it's red, that means it's low, if it's under 70. And on the graph you can see it's in the red. That means you need to take action, you gotta eat something. And if it's going down 2 times and it's low, you really got to eat something because that's not good. And the high is if it's over 250. Now, it's not as critical as the low, as I kept saying, but it's not good because that probably means you miscalculated your insulin dose or the carbs or anything. Or sometimes blood sugar can just go out of control for no reason. It's a thing, a common thing with diabetes. It's very unpredictable. But yeah, so you only change it every 10 days. It might seem like a short time, but it's actually a long time. Like the Omnipod insulin pump, only 3 days, but it's really like a lot better, I would say. Now let's talk about a glucose meter. There's a lot of tools, medical devices with diabetes. So let's talk about it. Sometimes sensors are not accurate. If you're not feeling symptoms of high/low blood sugar, or like if you're not feeling it and the sensor is not showing it, you might want to double check with the glucose meter. So there's been times definitely where my sugar said 300 on my Dexcom sensor and I checked it with my blood on the strip and it said it was like 100 points off, 200. Technology is not perfect and it can be hard to tell which one to trust sometimes. So if you want to use it, make sure your hands are clean. You can put strip into the machine, put a lancet, which is a needle, into the lancing device, which is in the diagram on the left. Then you poke your finger with that. Blood is going to come out of your finger. You squeeze it to make sure it comes out. You touch that little strip in the bottom of the machine with a tiny drop of blood. Wait a few seconds, and then it will give a reading. So, I would say this is more accurate than a sensor, only because it's your blood now, while sensors are every 5 minutes. I think I forgot to explain that. The sensor reads every 5 minutes. So, yeah, I forgot to say that, but it does. And this can tell you a reading as soon as possible. So I'm going to link this in the description as well. If you're interested, you can actually see me putting on an Omnipod 5 insulin pump. They can fail. Diabetes devices can definitely fail. While these devices make living with type 1 diabetes easier, they can fail, and when they do, they need to be replaced. So here are some examples. The picture on the left is actually a screenshot I took when my Dexcom failed in the middle of the night. I was trying to get a good night's sleep, and it just failed on me. I thought I was dying. I'm not even going to lie to you. But the truth was my sensor just failed out of nowhere. So it was fake readings. I checked with the meter to make sure I wasn't really dying or anything. And I came to realize that it failed. Omnipod failing to connect with the sensor. That's never happened to me, thank God. And I've never had a blockage either. Thank God for that. I've only had problems with the Dexcom so far, so it can suck, but it can help you. Like, technology helps you a lot, but it can suck when it fails. That's what I'm trying to say. Next, accommodations in school for kids with diabetes. So this is really a personal thing because I'm still in school, so I figured I should add this into my slides. So why do kids in school need special accommodations? As mentioned before, you can get the disease at any age, but most people get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes before adulthood, meaning that these people are still in school and need different accommodations to manage their diabetes throughout the day. These accommodations may vary by the school, but the next slides are based on by my school. The school nurse. The school nurse keeps all your supplies in her office. Before meals, you would go down to see her. And this is from my experience, by the way. I'm not sure how it is in other schools. And the nurse would help you figure out carbs, correction factors, and the units of insulin you're going to take. She also keeps devices like glucose meters, emergency medicine, and candy to bring up blood sugars. So I don't go down to the school nurse anymore because I use an insulin pump and I'm independent now. But she really was there to help me when I was first diagnosed, so I appreciate her. And shout out to my school nurse. Phone usage. Now, this can be very controversial, especially with phone homes in classrooms and phone use in school. But kids in school with diabetes need to have their phone with them so they can get sensor readings from the phone, regardless of the school rule. This is very important because this is a medical condition, and diabetes is no joke and needs attention 24/7. If taking a test for cell phone use is prohibited, you can leave the phone on the desk next to yours and arrange so you can listen for alerts. You're also allowed to check blood sugar during breaks and take extra if needed. And I have taken extra breaks when I was doing the SATs last year, and it really helped me to keep track of my sugars throughout my testing time since I couldn't have my phone with me. Effects of high blood sugars in working. High blood sugar can affect cognitive thinking, if you didn't know, and can also be responsible for bad grades in school, which is crazy, but it's true. Making sure your blood sugar is stable is essential for learning and completing classwork. If you have low blood sugar or high blood sugar, you might feel unwell, actually, and can affect the way you think, definitely. Especially when you're low, you get confused a lot. Next, let's talk about interviewing people with diabetes. I interviewed a few people, and I'd like to talk about some of the things they told me and share that I found interesting that I'd like to share with you guys. My diabetes educator, Jamie. So, I sat down on Zoom with my diabetes educator, Jamie, who has helped me when I was first diagnosed with diabetes. She is a registered nurse and certified diabetes care and education specialist at Connecticut Children's, providing education for those that are newly diagnosed with diabetes, including me. She's been living with type 1 since she was 15 years old, and when I was interviewing her, she also shared that she wasn't alone treating her diabetes. Her dad and uncle both had the disease as well, which gave her support and help when she was first diagnosed. She also told me things like how technology for type 1 diabetes is not as reliable as it is today, and is thankful for how far treatment for diabetes is improving. She also shared something I found interesting that I didn't know, which was I would always eat cereal in the morning, and my sugar would spike so much after eating it, and I wouldn't understand. And she said that's actually a thing with diabetes, which is weird that she says that cereal actually spikes your blood sugar for no reason. Even she doesn't know, and she teaches people about diabetes. There's some things that just still aren't understood with the disease, and the little things like that I find interesting. But I really appreciated talking to her, and I want to share some of that with you guys too. My papa. So my papa's been living with type 2 diabetes. I know it's not type 1, but I want to include this because it's part of the diabetes family. And he's been dealing with this for 10 years now. In 2014, he had a lung transplant caused possibly from smoking cigarettes throughout his life. The doctors didn't really find the direct cause, but that is probably why that happens. But you're probably wondering, how did he get type 2? Well, his operation was successful. He had to take many drugs for his body, though, to accept the new organ in his body. So without these drugs, his lungs would not function. All this medicine he was taking led to his diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. So he definitely tells me all the time that it's better than having failing lungs. It is definitely better, but it takes patience, it definitely takes strength, and takes education to learn this new disease. He also shared with me that when he started treating it, he hated giving himself insulin injections. Everybody with diabetes does. Now he's able to take medicine to treat it. Because with type 2, you can actually take medicine after a certain period of time. I'm not sure what that is. I only know type 1. You might want to do a little research on that, but yeah. Let's talk about my coworker, Gabe, who I just recently met. I recently met him at my job. He's been living with type 1 since he was 10 years old. He shares with me that he uses the Tandem T-Slim to give himself insulin, which is another insulin pump. I found it interesting that he wants to try a new one called iLet, which doesn't need carb counting. Instead, you tell it if you're eating more or less to determine how much insulin to give. I still don't understand how that works, but I'm a little interested about that too. But for now, I'm going to stick with the Omnipod. So, I don't really know a lot of people with type 1, so I'm glad that Gabe, my coworker, works with me, so I have someone to relate to. The other day we both had low blood sugars at the same time. It was kind of crazy. He's a good friend, a good coworker to have, and I'm glad I have someone to relate to. Wow, that was a lot of facts about type 1 diabetes. It could sure be overwhelming, but I want to wrap it up here with my conclusion. My final thoughts. I can say, at first when I had type 1 diabetes, it was definitely difficult, definitely hard. But I can say that my diabetes educator, Jamie, my friends, my family, and everyone has been there for me throughout this whole journey, especially when I was scared in the hospital and was confused and didn't understand questions like doctors asking me, oh, are you going to eat this? Are you going to eat that? Oh, what do you want to have to eat or whatever. But I want to say that this capstone project has really been like a big thing for me because I love sharing the facts of type 1 diabetes to people that don't know, because as I keep mentioning that it's really like a big thing. A lot of people have this disease. There's like millions of kids in America that have it, and not a lot of people know the facts about it. So I'm really grateful that I have this project to kind of share those things with you, not just to my capstone teacher, but online to YouTube as well. So I hope whoever's seeing this can see type 1 diabetes for what it really is and from experience. I've made this presentation from different sources like Mayo Clinic, Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes, and mostly from my lived experience. And I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.